Nadia and I were two young students deeply in love. I was in my third year, learning the ropes of programming, while she was studying dentistry and aspiring to become an orthodontist. Our chosen professions were in high demand, providing us with a sense of security for our future. Our aspirations were ambitious. We dreamed of exploring the world together and possibly even relocating abroad. My work could be done remotely as long as I had internet access and a laptop. And Nadia's expertise as an orthodontist would be valuable in any country we chose to live in. Nadia had a unique perspective on life. As a future doctor, she approached everything with a philosophical outlook. This extended to relationships, which she saw as grounded and down to earth. When I finally confessed that I had been involved with other girls in the past, she responded with surprising nonchalance. "Elias," she said, her voice tinged with nostalgia, "I don't care about your past. People can have multiple partners, just like living in a threesome." I was taken aback, even spilling tea on myself in shock. I couldn't help but think that this seemed like some sort of sexual perversion. But Nadia saw things differently. "Why would it be considered perverted?" she asked. "It's just another form of relationship, nothing to be ashamed of." I admired her open-mindedness and lack of judgment towards others. In her eyes, the world was a simple place, with people unnecessarily complicating things with moral codes and restrictions. I felt incredibly fortunate to have such a free-spirited and accepting partner by my side. And so, for the entire year, we embraced our love and rented a cozy apartment together. We cherished our time together, deepening our connection and exploring the depths of our beings. About 6 months later, Nadia once again broached the topic of non-monogamous relationships. It happened on a relaxing Sunday evening as we sat down for a romantic dinner, sipping wine and engaging in heartfelt conversation. Although I was taken aback, Nadia persisted in her interest to discuss the matter further. "Vitya practiced it," she said, flashing a smile. Vitya was one of her fellow students and a good friend of ours. We occasionally had conversations with him and even attended a few soccer games together. Initially, I had presumed that he was involved in a love triangle, but according to Nadia, Victor was a part of a trio consisting of 2 men and 1 girl. Upon discovering these revelations, I found myself feeling uneasy and sobered by the news. While I had never considered myself a prude, I suddenly felt repulsed and began avoiding Vitya altogether. The idea of non-monogamy, which I had previously dismissed as harmless, lost its humor entirely when Nadia brought it up for the 3rd time. I responded to her with irritation, expressing my belief that such a lifestyle was unnatural and morally questionable. After all, who in their right mind would willingly share their partner with another person? The thought of jealousy overtaking one's emotions seemed absolutely maddening. She sighed in disappointment at first, but then added with a smirk that I had never experienced anything like that before. After a successful session, I decided to visit my parents in my hometown. Strangely, I couldn't shake off my worries about Nadia, even though I couldn't explain the reason behind them. Despite receiving passionate messages from her almost excessively throughout the day, there was a nagging feeling in the back of my mind. I refused to let these stories get to me, regardless of how persistently a classmate tried to plant doubts in my head. I was determined that once I returned to the city, I would confront the issue head-on. It was either maintaining a friendship with this unstable guy or choosing me. It was tough, but he had the potential to lead Nadia astray. Much to my surprise, Nadia didn't show up to meet me at the airport, despite being well aware of my arrival time. It left me feeling a little down, but I had no choice but to accept it. I hailed a taxi and made my way to our rented apartment. When I got there and knocked on the door, there was no response, even though she had promised to take the day off from her part-time assistant job at the clinic on the day of my arrival. I opened the door using my key and was immediately greeted with a flurry of sounds coming from inside the room. Something wasn't right. I could distinctly hear a familiar voice that sounded uncannily like Vitya's. Curiosity and concern compelled me to rush into the bedroom, only to find them locked in a passionate embrace on our bed. It was quite a shock, but the biggest surprise came when I realized it wasn't an act of infidelity, but a premeditated event. Nadia separated from Vitya and attempted to kiss me. while he remained unperturbed. In that moment, it dawned on me that it wasn't he who had intruded into our relationship, but rather I had been naively labeled as the third person. For an entire year, she had been toying with my emotions alongside that imbecile. Overwhelmed with disgust, I pushed her away. I have a strict rule of not laying hands on women, but I couldn't resist the temptation to give that unscrupulous friend a taste of his own medicine. Once he had patched himself up, I wasted no time in gathering my belongings and walking away. "I love you," she pleaded as I left, but I couldn't help but mutter, "You animal. You and your Vidya have no respect for anything sacred." To my disbelief, Nadia shamelessly confessed her love for him, expressing a desire for us all to live happily together as a threesome. It appeared that she herself had played a part in this trio, as she subtly hinted. I didn't bother delving further into her twisted logic, fearing that it would drive me completely mad. She even had the audacity to ask me to consider it and get back to her once I had cooled down. From that point on, my perspective on conservative women with strong principles shifted, as did my avoidance of free-thinking individuals.